Do you not think an angel rides in the whirlwind and directs this storm? This work continues. The story goes on. And an angel still rides in the whirlwind and directs this storm. God bless you all. And God bless America.
Lightning destroyed key in hand of St. Peter's statue in Argentina on Pope Francis's birthday. And here it is. And obviously that really caught my attention. It caught my attention because, as you probably know, Pope Francis is from Argentina. This happened on his birthday. And in the Catholic Church, they view the Pope as the successor of Peter, in that the Pope holds the keys of the Church.
In a series of lightning strikes all around the same time, lightning had struck the United States Capitol building, the Washington Monument in D.C., the Empire State Building, and the One World Trade Center in New York City. I get it. Somebody is going to say that this is just a quote-unquote coincidence, but still, it's rather eerie. No different than the story of Luigi Mangione and the United Healthcare CEO, when they said he left behind a book bag with Monopoly money. Monopoly is connected to McDonald's. He was arrested at a McDonald's. He's seen in a picture holding up a McDonald's Happy Meal, and ultimately he's arrested by a Officer Fry at a McDonald's.
I'm really nervous about this one. I come in and that you had received some type of manifesto or email from the Green Beret that set off the car bomb at Trump Hotel in Las Vegas.
Right.
And we're not necessarily validating what came in on that email. There's some pretty alarming stuff about the drones that we're seeing on the East Coast and some capabilities that China has, some capabilities that we have, some activity that went on in Afghanistan in 2019.
This state of ignorant bliss that many enjoy shelters them from bearing the mental weight that is a part of the reality in which we actually live. So when strange occurrences or major catastrophic events and disasters occur, the average bear is relegated to the subordinate position of having to wait until they are told what the truth is by the mainstream media mouthpieces of the global Luciferian elite, removing from our minds the idea that suppressed history is also valid history, helps to keep us asleep. So when the Most High raises up voices that will tell us the things that the powers that be will not let us know, let's not dismiss them and disparage their message by merely calling it a conspiracy theory. Are you even sure of where you are? Do you not know that some of the things you call conspiracy theories are indeed conspiracies, but have long graduated past the realm of being merely theory? I find this relates to a statement from sources close to the suspect Matthew Levelesberger. They said of him that he loved the army, and he gave his life and his mind for it. What a curious statement. It's no surprise how the elite started off the year 2025. We are witnessing what was once the dawning of a new age become the new normal. The new Atlantean age of Aquarius is as it was in the days of Noah. Scamdemics, fallen angels in disguise, transhumanism disguised as technology, and the war for the minds of hearts and men will be all the rage in this so-called space age, where nothing is truly new under their sun, and what they do in the future and present is what they've always done.
Anyway, we will see, won't we? As we move into the New World Order, and all of these events are planned to take us directly into one world totalitarian socialist government. To all those people in the city of New York who lost relatives, or who had friends or relatives that were injured, I offer you my deepest compassion, sympathy, and I wish that I could tell you that that was the end of it, but I can tell you that it is only the beginning. Unless people wake up, it will escalate.
As this 1952 CIA memo says, the aim is controlling an individual to the point where he will do our bidding against his will, and even against such fundamental laws of nature as self-preservation. Internal documents show the CIA felt a drug derived from the mushrooms could remain an agency secret.
What in the world were they looking for with the magic mushrooms? I think the best answer to that is that they were looking for fundamental information on compounds that would be capable of causing changes in behavior, changes in mental attitude.
Did you ever consider what would have happened if any of these substances were given to, say, unwitting people?
Oh, I don't remember having considered that specifically.
What if you... I trust perhaps you've thought about it.
Oh, I haven't worried about it. Your question again, what would I have thought had I known that
any of these substances
would have been given to
unwitting persons?
You mean a hostile agent of another government?
No,
I think that was probably one of the things I had in mind.
Testing it out on an American citizen.
I guess I must seem very, very cold-blooded about this, but I don't recall ever having been very much preoccupied with that issue.
But many drugs were tested in this way. A decision was made at the highest levels of the CIA to do testing on unwitting Americans. As one CIA document says, such testing would be operationally realistic. A former CIA official who worked on these programs describes for the first time how the decision was made. He did not wish to be filmed or recorded. Thus his remarks are read by someone else.
I think every last one of us felt sorry to attempt this kind of thing. We knew we were crossing a line. Every decent kid knows he shouldn't steal, but he does it sometimes. We knew damn well we didn't want anyone else to know what we were doing.
The decision was made to do testing on unwitting victims. It was decided they should be on the fringes of society because they were most vulnerable.
It was the borderline underworld, prostitutes, drug addicts, and other small-timers who would be powerless to seek any kind of revenge in case they found out.
Covering a span of history such as we are in this report, one can get sidetracked by the so-called glamour and mystery of espionage work or by the exotic qualities of some drugs. But what you can't lose sight of is what all of this would mean in terms of individual human beings. There would be deaths, there would be long-lasting and harmful effects. The best-known case is that of this man, Frank Olson, a chemist employed by the Army Chemical Corps, who in 1953 was slipped LSD unknowingly at a meeting with CIA officials. Shortly after that, Olson went into severe depression. He ended his life at this New York hotel by diving through a shaded closed window in his 10th floor room. The CIA was not the only government agency interested in the possibilities LSD and other drugs presented for mind control. The Army Chemical Corps first started working with the CIA and then branched off on its own. It too tested drugs on unwitting victims, and a death would result. The case of this man, Harold Blower, a tennis pro, seen here with his daughter Elizabeth, is well known. In 1953, Blower was a private patient at the New York State Psychiatric Institute. He was given 5 injections of a mescaline derivative that was being tested secretly for the Army Chemical Corps. With the 5th injection, Harold Blower died. As with the Olson case, a 22-year cover-up followed, until finally the Army admitted the real details of Blower's death. Since the initial news stories of Harold Blower's death, close to 5,000 documents, previously classified, have been released by the Army and obtained by ABC News. They provide valuable insight into Army activities at the time of Blower's death and where the Army went from there with their own drug testing program. From a previously classified deposition of Dr. James Cattell, who administered the mescaline derivative, on the purpose of the drug testing, to produce symptoms similar to those that you see in schizophrenia, on how much the patient knew about all this. We didn't delineate all the possibilities of what might happen because then you contaminate your experiment. Cattell then relates that he never even knew what drug he had given Harold Blower because of the secrecy of the Army experiments. We didn't know whether it was dog piss. This was secret. This was a secret. We weren't in on it. History will judge the role of the CIA and other intelligence agencies in unwittingly contributing to the counterculture of the 60s through their intense interest in LSD and other hallucinogenics. But for the moment at least, the argument can be made that the CIA helped usher in the age of Aquarius. the story of a 30-year search by U.S. intelligence agencies to perfect mind control. Some of those engaged in that search have agreed to talk about it for the first time. One said, "I think every last one of us felt sorry to attempt this kind of thing. We knew we were crossing the line." The search would be endless. From brothels, an agent says, we learned a lot about human nature in the bedroom, to the mystical rites of a magical mushroom ceremony performed by an Indian shaman, to a Spanish bull ring. The bull has had electrodes implanted in the brain and is controlled by a scientist. There would be victims. One intelligence agency tried to peel this man's mind back to reveal its deepest secrets.
I lived through it.
This man worked on some of these programs. He would write of his work, "It was fun, fun, fun." This is the story of the search for mind control.
ABC News Close-Up, Mission Mind Control. With ABC News correspondent Paul Altmaier.
We are not professing to tell you the complete story of these activities. We are professing to tell you the complete story that we know. But these records that we've uncovered don't tell the story. They tell pieces of it.
This is a story that has been told in bits and pieces. This is an attempt to pull most of it together. We know we don't have the full story. We do, however, have some striking new revelations and insights. The story begins here, just off the nation's front yard, the Mall. The buildings behind me were the headquarters for the World War II Office of Strategic Services. It was here that the first halting steps toward mind control began. The shaper and molder of OSS was General Wild Bill Donovan. He said of his group's work, "We may have made mistakes, but we were not afraid to try things that were never done before." In this anything-goes atmosphere, Donovan appointed this man, Stanley Lovell, a Boston industrialist, to break new ground in many scientific and technical fields. Donovan called Lovell his Dr. Moriarty, after the fiendish professor in Sherlock Holmes. Lovell liked the name and posed for the Saturday Evening Post photo. He later wrote of his OSS job that it was, quote, "to stimulate the Peck's bad boy beneath the surface of every American scientist, and to say to him, throw all of your normal law-abiding concepts out of the window. Here's a chance to raise merry hell." It was in this atmosphere that the search for mind control began. This bizarre man would be an active participant in that search over the next 2 decades. His name is George White, an OSS captain who had formerly been with the Bureau of Narcotics. In his diary, seen here publicly for the first time, White left a legacy of the darker side of American intelligence work. He received his early OSS training at the British-run school at Oshawa, Canada, the same school where Ian Fleming, the creator of James Bond, was trained. White referred to the school in his diaries as the Oshawa School of Mayhem and Murder. Mike Burke, former OSS colleague of White's and now president of Madison Square Garden Center.
Very compelling fellow, mysterious fellow, almost mystical fellow. He was fascinating because you knew something about him, but not enough about him to really get a fix on him. He also knew a great deal about the swifter elements of society, the gamier side of life, and he was very impressive in his technical knowledge of the underworld, so to speak.
He said, one of our men gets beat up. He says, you have to act real fast and teach these guys a lesson.
Charles Siragusa, a former narcotics officer and friend of White's.
He'll come around, he says, and break your kneecaps. And with that, one guy laughed, and George White always had a little Billy with him. And this one guy saw us naked. George White turned around and whapped him across the neck with it. Then he picked up a pool stick and started beating everybody up.
He made his point.
And he made his point.
George White was not a man of understatement or subtleties. His boss at OSS, Stanley Lovell, referred to him as deadly and dedicated. In this note from White's diaries, it says, "Call Lovell regarding TD." TD was a rather transparent cover for Truth Drug. George White worked with the Truth Drug Committee here at St. Elizabeth's Hospital in the nation's capital. They experimented with mescaline, scopolamine, and marijuana on unwitting victims. The committee soon learned there was no easy panacea, no truth drug at this stage. But White and later colleagues would not stop trying. The goal remained the same. As this 1952 CIA memo says, the aim is controlling an individual to the point where he will do our bidding against his will, and even against such fundamental laws of nature as self-preservation. But it it was a discovery here in Basel, Switzerland, at Sandoz Laboratories by Dr. Albert Hoffman that led the intelligence agencies of America to believe that they had found the panacea. The discovery was lysergic acid diethylamide, LSD. The film that you see is considered by many experts to be the closest illustration of the effects of a hallucinogenic.
It was one of the first times that anybody had run into a powerful drug that was different than anything else that they knew anything about.
John Gittinger, recently retired chief psychologist for the CIA. This is the first time Gittinger has been interviewed publicly.
We could disable a whole city by putting a very small amount on a water supply. After all of these years of us, those of us who were involved in looking for this secret drug, this was the only thing that began to look for the first time like it might be something like that.
The CIA's interest in LSD was intense. The worry was that the Russians would get hold of it. Were the Soviets into LSD?
I'm going to have to say I'm sure they were, but if you ask me to prove it, I've never seen any direct proof of it.
But at one point, intelligence information received from Switzerland said that Sandoz Laboratories was about to put 100 million doses of LSD on the open market. And it caused enough concern within the agency that the United States was prepared to buy the entire supply. However, a slight mistake had been made. The mistake is made public for the first time.
I just found out on a new CIA document that there were no such large quantities of LSD on the market.
John Marks has filed numerous Freedom of Information suits against the CIA and has unearthed much new material. He is the author of The Search for the Manchurian Candidate, a history of intelligence agency work with mind control. He is a consultant for this report.
What happened is that there was a military attaché in Switzerland, an American officer, who got milligrams and kilograms mixed up. In other words, he made a mistake of thinking 1/1000th of a gram was the same as 1,000 grams, which is a mistake of 1,000,000 times. So when the CIA got the intelligence that there were 100 million doses on the market, in fact, there were 100 doses.
The man who would oversee the CIA's research into drugs and most of the agency's behavior programs is this man, Dr. Sidney Gottlieb, a chemist. Dr. Gottlieb declined ABC News' request for an interview. In their never-ending search for the miracle weapon, CIA operatives searched here in the remote mountain areas of southern Mexico for what up to then had been considered a myth, magic mushrooms. They used this man, a part-time chemist with the CIA, to dupe this man, a vice president of a bank and an amateur mycologist or mushroom expert, to try to get to the magic mushrooms and turn them into a drug. But it would be the amateur, R. Gordon Wasson and his colleagues, who would win the race and develop the drug psilocybin from the magic mushrooms.
We went into the Mazatec area, far from the highways, remote from Mexico City. There we found that rotten bagasse, as it's called, bagasso, covered with mushrooms. These mushrooms I didn't know, had never seen. They were the sacred mushrooms.
Wasson would also discover and record the ancient mystical rites of the mushrooms from the local shaman or magical priestess, Maria Sabina.
And we were seeing incredible sights. They would go slowly or they would go fast as I ordained. All your senses are rendered acute. We say that you see visions, you see hallucinations, but that doesn't begin to tell this story. The hallucinations are only part of it. You hear sounds, you smell things. The night was thrilling.
Word of Wasson's discovery reached the CIA quickly. Dr. James Moore, a University of Delaware chemist, secretly served the CIA preparing deadly chemicals on short notice. Moore was instructed to get close to Wasson and accompany him on another trip to Mexico to get the magic mushrooms. And as their predecessors had a decade earlier, the CIA turned to George White for help. White was now a high-ranking narcotics official, and by this time the stories about George White were legendary.
So the waiter says, "May I help you, monsieur?" And George White was busy talking with me. Paid no attention to the waiter, so the waiter tapped him on his shoulder, says, "May I help you, monsieur?" George White turned around, whipped his gun out, and stuck it in the guy's face like this in this crowded restaurant.
George White did not mind bending the law, and he knew the street well. He was the ideal choice for what the CIA had in mind.
We were Ivy League, white, middle class. We were naive, totally naive about this, and he felt pretty expert. He knew the whores, the pimps, the people who brought in the drugs.
White set up so-called safe houses for the CIA in New York, here in Greenwich Village, and later in San Francisco, in this hotel, and in an apartment atop Telegraph Hill with a commanding view of San Francisco Bay. While the existence of these safe houses was disclosed last year, details of what took place within them has not been told. A former CIA official who worked in the safe houses reveals that they were used not only for drug testing, but to study sexual behavior and how it could be used to manipulate people.
We did quite a study of prostitutes and their behavior. How do you take a woman who is willing to use her body to get money out of a guy to get him to talk about things which are much more important, like state secrets? We learned a lot about human nature in the bedroom. We started to pick up knowledge that could be used in operations.
There would be victims in all of this, but as the agency knew, they couldn't fight back. Some entries from George White's diaries. Clarice gets horrors. Janet, sky high. As one agency memo says, we have no answer to the moral question. The safe houses were not the only testing grounds. Millions of dollars would be spent on LSD research at universities throughout the country. And word would begin to spread on campus about this so-called mind-blowing drug. And suddenly, there was the counterculture of the 60s.
I give the CIA a total credit for sponsoring and initiating the entire consciousness movement, counterculture events of the 1960s.
Dr. Timothy Leary, the 1960s Johnny Appleseed of LSD.
The CIA funded and supported and encouraged hundreds of young psychiatrists to experiment with this drug. The fallout from that was that the young psychologists began taking it themselves, discovering that it was an intelligence-enhancing, consciousness-raising experience.
I know that some of the studies in which the CIA had supported used as subjects people who later became strong proselytizers of LSD. So, in that sense, yes, I think it did sustain the perpetuation of the use of the drug. And it's rather ironic, isn't it?
The counter case that I would make in relationship to that is that remember that the people who were doing the research were people who would be doing the research regardless of who was the sponsor. I don't think anybody working in that time in the remotest ever thought that it would blow up into the kind of thing that it did.
Frank Olson was the first known fatality in the CIA's LSD program. Olson left behind a widow Alice and 3 children, but it would be years before they learned the real story of his death. Shortly after his suicide, Alice Olson was visited by Dr. Sidney Gottlieb, the man who had administered the drug, and by Robert Lashbrook, his deputy, who was the last person with Frank Olson the night of his death.
It was probably to check me out and see whether I was handling myself and handling the situation, whether I was hysterical. And I'm sure they left the house feeling ever so much better because I had been gracious and hospitable to them, so that I must have played right into their hand and made them feel fine.
23 years later, how did you feel about that meeting?
My anger was unbelievable at how I had been duped for this length of time, and the anguish which was unnecessary.
Anyone who knew during all of those years never told Alice Olson the real story of her husband's death. She would discover it by accident more than 2 decades later. In essence, it was a 22-year-long cover-up. Lyman Kirkpatrick was Inspector General of the CIA at the time of Frank Olson's death.
But had not the Olson case occurred within the secret confines of the CIA, would not this case have been a prosecutable case? Perhaps manslaughter?
I would think very definitely prosecutable, and certainly from the point of view of of Mr. Olson, why it should probably have been actionable.
Frank Olson's suicide slowed down the CIA's testing of LSD and other drugs, but only momentarily. We asked Blower's daughter Elizabeth for her reaction.
How can anybody react to that? I mean, that is so far from what you'd expect from a human being, never mind a doctor, never mind a professional specialist who's supposed to care about people's minds. It's unbelievable.
A suit filed by Elizabeth Barrett against the Army Chemical Corps is now pending in federal court. Other Army experiments continued on mental patients around the country. Work done at the Tulane Medical Center in New Orleans involved several drugs, hallucinogenics, and electrodes implanted in the brain. The chief researcher was Dr. Russell Monroe, now head of the psychiatry department at the University of Maryland. These are various progress reports written by Dr. Monroe and recently obtained by ABC News. From one of the progress reports, a report of a woman who had electrodes implanted in the brain and was then given LSD and other drugs. She became agitated, cried, lapsed into a trance-like state. Felt as if she were about to have a convulsion, experienced waves of darkness and light, had bizarre sensations in her neck and legs, said somebody was trying to manipulate her body. At this point, Dr. Monroe wrote that the woman was obviously having paranoid ideas.
As a layperson, perhaps you can enlighten me. What therapeutic effect would the type of experiment that I just described have on a patient?
Well, the therapeutic effect would be indirect.
Was this patient aware that she was being given LSD?
Yes, I mean, they were told that they would be given some medication, and they
specifically LSD.
Well, we told them. I don't think that they would have even known what LSD was then at the time. They were told that they were going to they would be given some medications, which might make them feel worse.
Dr. Monroe, what do you think the Army Chemical Corps was looking for in all of this testing?
They were looking for an incapacitating agent. An agent that would not harm the person permanently, but would incapacitate them temporarily. That seemed like a humanistic way to wage a war, if war is necessary.
When James Thornwell was given LSD by Army intelligence in 1961, this time it was no experiment. This time, the express purpose was to peel back Thornwell's brain to bear any secret within it. This time, the Army had gone operational. Thornwell, as reported on ABC last January, was an Army private stationed in Orléans, France. Classified documents were missing from his unit. Thornwell became a suspect. His 2.5-month interrogation included administration of sodium pentothal, hypnosis, isolation, and deprivation of sleep. Army documents obtained by ABC News refer to this interrogation as conventional. Despite the severe questioning, Army intelligence was getting nowhere with Thornwell, and it was decided to slip him LSD. For 16 years, Thornwell never knew what had hit him.
Tell me about the acid.
I'd rather not. It's a bad trip. It's a bad trip. That was a bad trip. The pain was so excruciating. Felt like somebody was sticking me with 1,000,000 pins. You know, just everywhere. Oh, it just...
What's up, man?
I walked around.
What's up?
Oh, I can talk. I lived through it. I lived through it.
No charges were ever brought by the Army against Thornwell. He was discharged for psychological disorders. But an Army psychiatric evaluation of Thornwell obtained by ABC News, one which was done prior to Thornwell having been given LSD, says of him, fairly cooperative, oriented, alert, and gave no evidence of psychosis or depression. From the Army's point of view, this type of LSD interrogation was a success. Other documents refer to the exploitability of interrogation subjects, cracking them, keeping them off balance mentally, and providing an economical, speedy, and productive aid to interrogation. From James Thornwell's point of view, it was no success. Thornwell still has serious problems. He's run through 2 marriages, he maintains he can't hold a job, can't concentrate, has nightmares, and feels socially and emotionally isolated. Last fall, Thornwell filed suit against the government in federal court. In a moment, we will examine the closest experimentation to brainwashing that we have uncovered.
Decrepit. Decrepit.
What's the world coming to?
They belonged to a sinister secret society. Their symbol was a black dragon. Take a good look at these humorless men.
play your drum.
Police are still searching for the suspects who opened fire in Queens, injuring 10 teenagers.
Police sources say it happened outside a nightclub where inside people were gathering for a memorial service. John Diaz has more from Jamaica.
Multiple evidence cones scattered outside the Jamaica Queens venue Amazura on 144th Place. Police say just after 11 p.m. Wednesday, 4 male suspects fired off more than 30 rounds, injuring a total of 10 teenagers as they waited outside the venue. Video shows some of the chaos. Neighbors say it was so loud they thought people were celebrating the holiday. Police are now looking at this surveillance video from a nearby home, which shows 4 people running toward the club. Then, less than 20 seconds later, it appears the same 4 people are running away. Police say the victims, 6 girls and 4 boys, range in ages from 16 to 19. They're being treated at area hospitals and are expected to be okay.
Just what in the mind control ultra is going on? 10 injured in mass shooting outside Queens, New York nightclub, the Amazura Club. It's a performance venue. It appears to cater to West Indian, Jamaican, and Caribbean acts. They have had MMA fights and after-prom events there, according to available pics and info online from their website. It does not appear to be the type of club where disorganized teenage gang activity thrives. Yet that's the official story. Some kids running amok. Is this an isolated and random incident involving young teens like the official story we were told about the Miami Mall incident that opened up the year 2024? Or could this be a part of something more?
11 people have confirmed received injuries. They have been shot at. It's a mass shooting incident. This is absolutely terrible. If there's New Orleans, then there is Las Vegas, and then this. We do not know if this is a terror attack, what exactly happened. Was there some sort of scuffle, confrontation? We are getting more details on that. But we do know that a mass firing has taken place. 11 people injured. Barely hours after, a driver drove the truck into a crowd, killing innocent 15 people. And many others injured. There is a suspected ISIS terror linked to him, who's an American citizen, who was shot dead by the cops right on the spot. Then comes in the Cybertruck explosion outside Trump Hotel. Now this.
The 2 men linked to the chaos that was caused in New Orleans and outside of the Trump Hotel in Las Vegas, which involved a Tesla, hint hint. Both happen to have been stationed at the same military base at different times, we're told. Both incidents also happened within a couple of hours of each other. One of the men is also Special Forces Green Beret. And then there were the now 11 injured reported from the nightclub attack that happened in the city of Queens, New York. Researchers like Russ Dizdar have proposed that there are sleeping cells of post-hypnotic suggestion victims and MKUltra programmed operatives who will be awakened to create an atmosphere of chaos at a pre-selected time. Now that's an oversimplified version of a theory that he called the Black Awakening. The likely candidates for these psychological operation events would come from particular military backgrounds and elite families. And historically, when patsies are used to perpetrate events for the Brotherhood, it always comes along with a note to conveniently tie up all of the loose ends that may connect the mind control victim to their actual controllers, who are higher up on the social food chain and are part of the not-so-secret high society that rules over governmental figureheads and conducts these types of clandestine operations without regard for human life, which they view as collateral damage necessary to achieve their world dominance and societal control. Both the New Orleans suspect and the man in the Vegas Cybertruck explosion shared more links in the attacks that happened just hours apart, but also the three cities involved shared links. It's the three most well-traveled and well-toured cities in the United States, arguably. New Orleans, New York City, and Las Vegas. What a way to send a message to people about socializing and the dangers of being out in the open in public. Are they trying to train us again? Are they getting us ready to accept being inside? What's really going on with these so-called suspects of these murders? Are they all mind-controlled victims? They all just happen to leave manifestos, write notes on bullets, leave ISIS flags on the back of their vehicles, all convenient little tidbits left behind by sloppy killers with a criminal mind, we're told. Or these could be very convenient cover stories that help to get the public off of any idea of conspiracies involving the powers that be or some organization or group. As long as there's the idea of the lone gunman, the single patsy, then psyops like these will continue. And if the Black Awakening has been triggered and it's time now for Operation Chaos, then what we could see is combined disasters used in order to create such a chaotic situation that only help from a supernatural source could bring man
long-term security. Security that will come with a genuine peace.
Are drawn together in common cause to achieve the universal aspirations of mankind, peace and security.
Let's base our decisions about peace and security on the facts.
One indivisible union. Let us seek peace and security throughout the world. If in science and industry, our hopes for peace and security.
Can we truly speak of peace and security without us addressing the spread of nuclear weapons in the world?
Peace and security. Peace and security do not come easily. Upon taking office, I appointed a special envoy for Middle East peace, world peace. It cannot be the work of one man, or one party, or one nation. It cannot be a peace of large nations or of small nations. It must be a peace which rests on the cooperative effort of the whole world. The promotion of peace and security, pursuit of peace, yearning for peace is universal. Our efforts to promote peace or effective peacekeeping will pursue a lasting peace, comprehensive peace agreements will secure the peace and enduring peace. A just and lasting peace between Israel, Palestine, and the Arab world strengthened their efforts on security. Security for Israelis and Palestinians. The goal is clear. Two states living side by side in peace and security. Serious about peace, an unwavering commitment to its security is fundamental to the security of our nations and to the peace of the world. For our global safety, our security, America's commitment to seek the peace and security of a world without nuclear weapons. Mankind won't look to the comforter or the provider of the comforter, the Heavenly Father. Luigi didn't write on those bullets. Either the operatives or the handlers that handled him wrote on the bullets,
or there was never nothing on them in the first place. Interesting that it happened outside of the Hilton Hotel, and this young man appears to be from a family of means. Could he be a victim of the same thing that these two ex-army guys are likely a victim of? And then there was the Christmas halftime show that was a premonition to the Super Bowl show. It reminded us of what we saw during the Paris Olympics, where the white horse figured prominently. White horse symbology is always used in conjunction with the last days. Made most famous, of course, by the book written by famous truther and patriot and martyr William Cooper. Behold a Pale Horse. CEO Brian Thompson was called a stand-up guy, and people that knew him said they've never met anyone who had anything bad to say about him. So I believe that was an MKUltra type of hit, and that the man was killed because of something he was going to do or doing that the elite did not want done. Now, some of the mind control victims of the Alphabet Boys covert ops are military, and many others come from upper class and high society families. Oftentimes, they're the ones who volunteer their children for the programs that allow for these kids to go through trauma-based mind control. Now, anyone who happens to be highly suggestible to subliminal messaging or hypnotic suggestion can and will be, according to this theory of the Black Awakening, activated or awakened in order to help to facilitate the chaos necessary during the Combined Disasters agenda. The Combined Disasters agenda will create the type of chaos that will allow for people to cry out for peace and security. Now, it's interesting that the shooting happened outside of the Hilton Hotel, and I would guess, judging by Paris, that that's a MKUltra affected family. And that's not a smoking gun, but I think that's a connection that may help to give us some idea that this is part of the same type of operation as the two military guys were a part of, as well as the shooting in the nightclub in New York. And then there was the Christmas halftime show that was a premonition to the Super Bowl show. It reminded us of what we saw during the Paris Olympics, where the white horse figured prominently. White horse symbology is always used in conjunction with the last days. Made most famous, of course, by the book written by famous truther and patriot and martyr William Cooper. Behold a Pale Horse. Will Cooper not only went out like a soldier, he called 9/11 and he read Alex Jones' The Riot Act and gave him his issue live on air. He talked about many of the things that we are witnessing and experiencing today in this work that came out way back in 1991. Duality and hermetic magic. The elite stick to their schemes. Hermetic symbolism. A cactus in the snow. Disorder. Things out of order. Duality. Chaos. Which of course precedes the order that they want to bring in. And I said to myself when I saw this card that this has to be a devil. French for of the city, of course, but symbolically representative of devil. By the way, Dr. York had 7 parked on his compound in Georgia. Christmas is usually visualized as festive, yet the imagery of standing atop the roses is both dark and telling. Bay knows that she was once atop the rose pile and was the top rose, but now she's declining in status and value as all roses do as they age. Rose equals beta MKUltra, mind control sex slaves. The blood, the false light, and the darkness, red, white, and black, keys to their colors. 1967 is the year of the Cadillac in simple gematria, which is what they actually use. That's 6 plus 7, or 13, symbolic of rebellion. And this little article here, where it says that there were many hidden Easter eggs in Beyonce's NFL halftime show, is just a cute little way of saying that subliminal symbolism is inserted in her performances. So what is she being told to tell us with this imagery? Bang. And this chaos, these big news events, they were all centered around sporting events or sports and entertainment events, bread and circus, entertainment, originally from to enter a tame mentality. And I don't think that that's a coincidence. This is a good way, from, of course, the perspective of the powers that be, to condition Americans to expecting a new level of security when they are out on the town entertaining, or when they're at sporting events, when they're in social settings. Caesar's Superdome in New Orleans, the Crescent City, Louisiana, home of voodoo, witchcraft, and black arts, is where the Sugar Bowl was going to be played, but had to be postponed due to the events that happened on Bourbon Street. Now, the crescent secretly symbolizes the mother of witches: Lilith, Isis, Inanna, Ishtar, Ashtar, Diana, Cybele, whatever one you want to call her, Oshan. It's always symbolic of this Queen Mother Goddess, which we've talked about many times. There's no need for there to be a spiritual woman because, again, a womb man is one who carries a womb, and that's not necessary. But millions of people around the world use these ancient magic symbols as intended. They understand what they really mean, and they understand that there is truly no mother goddess. It's a spirit. The spirit is represented always with this crescent moon and this woman, or this mother goddess, because of the presentation that the spirit has. It presents as female. No one, not you or anyone else, is able to turn around this magic and use it for good. Every practice given to you by the spirits is a way for you to let them into you or your dimensional space, knowingly or unknowingly. Here you see where the horns of Isis gets its name and why it's associated with the moon. That particular moon is called a Isis moon. Now, the rebellious angels who disobeyed the Most High gave man things like material depleting technology and ancient Eastern mysticism, New Age, in order to cause man's self-destruction and fool him into letting those spirits enter into his body or dwelling. Some took the form of Eve in mockery of her divine creation and demanded worship and servitude via sexual magic and manipulation, bringing you the first Queen Mother Goddesses, bringing you Lilith, bringing you the spirit of Jezebel. Again, the spirit is not a woman. It does not have long hair and a womb or mammaries. But it is a spirit that targets women and that presents as female. Isis is the bull god. Again, a bull is a male animal, but it's really a fallen angel cursed with disfigurement and disguised as your ancestor queen, but it's really a devil-wearing drag. Spirits don't need wombs. Isis was a fallen angel. So was Zeus. God makes fair rules, so the fallen angels and devil's ability to fool man has its limits. Some indication of what these limits are, or some indication of what these beings actually are, must always remain. Hence the horns, the wings, and the scales of your Queen Isis. Look at the oldest depictions and how alien and foreign to human beings they look. Going back to Babylon, going back to ancient Sumer. And there you have the original mother and child, or Madonna and child representation, which comes from this pagan idea that includes many dark and taboo philosophies, including pedophilia and incest. Keeping it in the family was important. Don't just get all your info from sisters with head wraps and brothers wearing pillbox hats. Look around. There are more woke folk who claim they can take the power back through these ancient practices than there are true students of magic, and yet no one has done it. Counting the age of enlightenment of the 1800s, you have had over a century more to take it back and fix society with it. But it don't work like that. It works as intended. There's the Bernie relief. The official name of it is the Queen of the Night. This is Ishtar from ancient Mesopotamia and Babylon. The Queen of the Night is Isis and Bast and Hathor, is Diana of Ephesus and Venus, is Lilith and Jezebel, and is a fallen angel, aka devil, disguised as a woman. Don't get it twisted. American centers of tourism with high population, and Trump's name figures prominently in these disasters. The Green Beret was said to have been a supporter of Trump. He drove a Tesla. The Tesla Cybertruck that he drove exploded outside Trump International Hotel in Las Vegas. All of these things can be seen as mere coincidences, except so many things are not adding up. The only thing that we can say for certain is that there's probably symbolic meaning to these things, if nothing else. It is also being kicked around out there that the Green Beret was whistleblowing about civilian casualties that he encountered and was a part of creating while he was serving overseas, and also he claims that the drones were from China. How that could figure into the Trump narrative when he takes into office could be very interesting, especially if he carries that narrative on. Or will he be the disclosure president that everyone is expecting for him to be, and will he say that no, that was a cover story or a deflection story? It's really something out of this world that's going on. We don't know yet, but we can imagine when they use such prominent cities with such important symbolism like Las Vegas, Sin City, New York, the Big Apple, symbolic of the apple that Adam and Eve didn't really take a bite out of according to scripture, but the apple that people think of as the forbidden fruit. And then of course you have New Orleans, which is known for not just tourism, but also the voodoo tradition that's still popular there.
Since the beginning of time, man has yearned to destroy the sun. I will do the next best thing. Block it out.
Operation Blocking Out the Sun.
What's going on? Something in a mess! Shut it! Nothing in the midst. What if you're wrong? Yes.
I don't know if it's just me, but for the last few days I have been having this weird feeling like something big is about to happen, right? Like this weird feeling of impending doom. I have been having this crazy feeling like in my belly. I don't know what it is, okay? To be brutally honest, I feel like something is already happening. And here's why. For the last few days, there have been crazy reports of dense, thick fog in many states all over America, in addition to the UK. Now, this is not your regular fog, because a lot of people have been reporting that they have been seeing some weird type of mist coming out of the sky with this fog, okay? In addition to that, there have been 4 plane crashes, y'all, within the last 5 days, okay? 3 of those plane crashes occurred within the last 24 hours. You had one on Christmas Day in Kazakhstan, and then within the last 24 hours, you had one in South Korea, Nova Scotia, as well as Norway. In addition to that, y'all, so many people have been reporting this weird sickness, where as though they're having muscle soreness, sore throat, body aches, nausea, vomiting, dizziness, the whole 9. And they said that this sickness had just been coming out of nowhere. I don't know about you, but I feel like something big is happening or about to happen, and these people just are not telling us. What are your thoughts?
So I've been sitting back, keeping everything cordial with these people. But I'm understanding that's not enough. Somebody tell me, have you ever seen anything like this? No, y'all. This is not a military operation. This, I don't even know what to call it. But y'all do. So let me know down in the comments. Look at it, y'all. That's 4 planes. Not 1, not 2, 4. Lately, there's been a lot of fog going around. I'm talking about all over the world, mainly in UK. I believe it's been 6 days in a row where they got fog, but the fog they've been getting is fog like nothing they have ever seen.
So I've been hearing about all this talk about the fog all over the world, and I'm out in Houston. I'm in the Galleria area on the 17th floor, and it's about like 3 in the morning, and it's pretty foggy everywhere, as you can see. There's like a residential area below me, and usually this way you see buildings and all that, but I don't see anything. It's pretty crazy. I don't know what it's about, but yeah. And this is at 7 in the morning. Still pretty foggy. I'm just showing the residential area now. The house is below. Still, it's pretty foggy, The sun's coming out. The sun's about to rise.
The fog situation across the United States is really a cause for concern, and it's not only here in the U.S., but also in Canada and UK are reports of this mysterious fog that smells and looks different. Well, the next 3 videos are from 3 different witnesses, one in East Texas, one in Minnesota, and one in the UK, particles of what's in this fog. And I have to tell you, this isn't normal. This is actually weird. And if you're experiencing this fog, be very careful and really try not to breathe it in. Take a look at these next 3 videos.
Okay. Calling in all reinforcements. Need your help on this one. My friend who lives in East Texas woke up today and this is what was in her pool. Now she's lived in this property for over 11 years and never has had anything like this happen before. No, she did not change any chemical regimen in her pool. The only thing that she says that was kind of weird was there was some really odd fog yesterday. But I've tried to look it up too. I can't find anything that would lead to anything like this happening or any reaction with water.
This is a new one. Let me show you what my new one looks like. This is a new one, okay? It's a MERV 11 filter. Now, keep in mind, I just changed this filter like a month ago. Let me show you the one that I'm about to pull out. What? What in the actual fuck? Look at this filter, y'all. I've never pulled out a filter this dark in my life. This is not normal. It's black. Look at the new one. Oh my God, y'all. Oh my God. This is fucking crazy. I'm sorry. This isn't normal, yo. It's not normal. This fog is not normal. This is not normal.
This is Barry Paskin back with the fog. The fog is not really here, but this white powdery stuff is still coming. When you push it together, that is what you get. So it is rainy sleet today, but the particles are still there between the water. And when you rub it, you can see, look, it's just this, it's this white liquid now mingling. So whatever is mingling with the water, if that's normal rain to you, and you think that it's just mist, you seriously need to get your head tested. As far as I'm concerned, we are absolutely being poisoned.
The Galactic Federation has given humans until 2027 to reveal our presence to the world.
Yet, on virtually every newsstand is a welter of misinformation which can wreck them for life.
You've probably seen this on the news or in articles talking about CIA agents claiming that humans have until 2027 before they reveal themselves. Former Israeli space chief talking about extraterrestrials exist. And the former defense minister of Canada talking about the Galactic Federation is real and has been watching us for a long time. Let's not forget about the large amount of people claiming they are aliens among the humans. That is because we are, and we are here. We have been on this planet in many different ways. 1. Incarnating on your planet and being housed in a human body. 2. Government bases or government establishments. 3. Underground bases or in orbit. Or number 4, just walking amongst you and you would never know. Many of you have known our presence for a long time and have been trying to awaken others, but
Wrong, 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 wrong. Wrong, 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 wrong.
Wait a minute, I'm talking now, if you don't mind, please.
My name is Anita. Today we're coming live from Sandy Creek Park in Athens, Georgia, and we have with us the Imperial Grand Potentate himself, Dr. Malachi Dior, the man that has made it possible for the Nubian nation to be established throughout the world. He has touched many hearts and has opened many minds to the truth. So without further ado, here's Dr. Malachi Dior. Just a few questions, and first of all to say thank you for making it possible for me to be here and to know as much as I do know at this time.
You do my job.
All right, I want to say congratulations on your new title as Imperial Grand Potentate. Can you tell me what it means to us as Nubian people?
I wouldn't say it means anything as to Nubian people per se, but in the Masonic world, after you finish traveling, if you make the decision that you want to go over into the shrine and cross that desert, then you do that. If you want to stay there and climb higher and higher, then you'll take on different titles, depending on what you do for the shrine. And the people I'm more concerned with the Afro Masonic lodges and Afro shrine, because there is a split in Freemasonry between the whites and the blacks. And the whites have blacks pledging to them, when in actuality the first Freemason was Nimrod, son of Cush, the Ethiopian, and they should be getting their charters from us. So I'm barely here to set the record straight. And I think it's time for Freemasons, I think it's time for us to come forward, because we're getting a bad name because of things that Caucasian Masons are doing, like Albert Pike and Albert Mackey and them, with their books Moral Dogma, where they give praise to Lucifer. And now Freemasons worldwide, they're being thought of as satanic and all that. And I think it's time for us to step up and let people know what we're allowed to let them know about our fraternity, right? But to set the record straight. You know what I'm saying?
Amazing. Every word of what you just said was wrong.
Does that sound familiar?
the media would write correctly. Fake news. Fake news. False media. We don't need it, do we? If the media would write correctly. Yeah.
Yes, it is an alien invasion. What is it? Look at them. They're moving in circles at the top. See? The formation on the right, and then they got another formation in the middle, and another formation on the left. Mm-hmm.
Aliens, what is this? They don't look wrong.
Let me see.
The funny, not funny haha, but funny odd thing about New Age is that it isn't really new at all. It is the ancient Eastern traditions of mysticism all set out like a big buffet of spiritual practices that seem so delicious to the rebellious, because these practices do not require the rigid morality or discipline of the Abrahamic religions. This is especially tempting to people who have been turned against Father God by the powers that should not be, who use male imagery in conjunction with negative ideology in order to cast aspersions upon the correct parts of the classic idea of manhood. It is as if the philosophy is to throw out the proverbial baby with the bathwater. So under the guise of correcting and refining everything wrong with manhood, society has inadvertently, systemically devalued manhood, all while redefining it at the same time. This creates a confusion that gives rise to people who have tried to articulate this androcide, from Jordan Peterson all the way to the other extremes of Andrew Tate and everything in between. Spirits do not have gestation periods, nor do they give birth, therefore they do not need a womb. The woman was made from Adam's side in order to be a helpmeet. The spirit has no need for a helpmeet because the spirit is not given to the same emotions or needs that God allowed for men and women to share. This is what makes it so egregious when rebellious angels went against the order of the Most High God and began to interact inappropriately with men and women. This included, but was not exclusive to, sexual interference with humans, but it also included the genetic altering of the DNA of every living thing, from plants to marine life to the fowl of the air and the beasts of the field, and every creeping thing, according to often cited apocryphal texts such as the Book of Jasher and the Book of Enoch. The goal of the fallen angels was like that of their leader, to be like the Most High. This indicates a desire to replace God rather than to worship, honor, praise, and revere Him. This also indicates a desire to receive praise, which is why these ancient Eastern mystic traditions were introduced to men in the first place. The allure of secret knowledge has always enticed the human psyche, even during what we know of as primitive history. The beings who made a pact on Mount Hermon created the first conspiracy. They conspired together under an oath to teach man forbidden knowledge that would destroy him. However, they would make the knowledge seem attractive to man. They would give him the illusion of having power like the angels, which man mistook for having power like God. To this day, men purposely misquote the scripture, "Ye are gods," because they actually share the same desire that these rebellious beings had within themselves. And that is not only to be as God, but to be worshipped as one. You see, these two things go hand in hand, and only the delusional will tell you otherwise. Kings exercise absolute power by divine right. Absolute power corrupts absolutely. The divine right of kings was the first establishment of royalty on planet Earth. When the Israelites begged Samuel, the man of God, to ask for a king, it is because the Israelites were being influenced by the other tribes and nations they encountered. The influence of these various tribes and nations was overwhelming compared to the small impact of the tribe of Jacob. Within men today still lies this desire to be worshipped, which produces pimp pastors, New Age guru grifters, and undercover closet witches who take what little bit they learn from research and can use it to their advantage and twist it into a deadly spiritual prescription to be given to whatever victim they may be presently duping. These ancient beings gave men systems and practices that man calls Eastern mystic traditions or New Age practices. In fact, these ancient mystic traditions are actually ways for mankind to get in contact with and open himself up to, as well as open doorways for, these fallen angels, aka beings that rebelled against the true and living God. So for all intents and purposes, one would call them devils. They take the form of beings of light, and if you could take the time to listen to people who actually study the scripture, they would tell you that the Bible said that long before the Galactic Federation started channeling their books to their contactees on planet Earth, quote unquote, we were warned against Satan and his angels being able to turn themselves into ministers or beings of light. This is long before the Galactic Federation started channeling their books to their contactees on planet Earth, quote unquote. For thousands of years, the rebellious have willfully chosen these practices because none of them require abstinence, and most of these practices do not burden you with the idea of devils or demons potentially trying to invade you. In fact, most New Age practices will tell you that this idea does not exist. No matter what twist they put on this same ancient trick, it's still the same desired result for these entities, and that is that men and women turn away from the Father of their ancestors, the most true and living God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and they begin to turn inward toward themselves as the idea of self-deification tempts them beyond their ability to resist. The truth is, today's men and women have much in common with these pride-filled and rebellious angels. These were once beautiful angels of God, who as punishment have become hideous beings that we would call malevolent entities or demons. These beings made themselves manifest to every culture on the earth who recorded them as their ancestor gods and goddesses. Is the next natural step in progression the manifestation of cryptids, extra-dimensional beings, and zoological and cryptozoological entities? If the plot includes having a grand entrance for these beings, who were already here since being cast from heaven, just how will they get the public to accept it and want it, to beg for it, like they always seem to be able to do? Will it be that we will see an increase in sightings of supernatural beings that we are not familiar with? This could be considered as something that our military isn't prepared for, and that only a supernatural force could help us with. But a wicked and adulterous generation will not cry out for a God in a time like this. They will, however, accept their space brothers, especially if they come in just the nick of time with the solution that we need for an infestation of cryptids or some new lab-created plague, or perhaps these entities will split themselves into groups and play good cop and bad cop against us all. Is the fog a setup to create an outcry of, hey, what happened to the drones? Two or more things can be true at the same time, and it's possible, even likely, that the so-called fog is doing double or triple duty, making people sick and creating coverage or adjusting the atmosphere for whatever's planned to come. Your real world government leaders have been communing with and worshiping these beings for centuries, and they have agreed to stay mostly out of sight, these beings, and they can somehow keep other supernatural occurrences and cryptid sightings at a minimum until now, the agreed upon time for them to begin to be revealed to man, but not as what they truly are, but as your ancestor gods and goddesses, your space brothers and sisters, the progenitors of the human race. In the book of Revelation, the pale horse symbolizes death and pestilence, which could be sickness or plague. Death. The pale horse is the personification of death, who kills on Roman earth using the four judgments of God: sword, famine, pestilence, and wild beasts. Could that also allude to cryptids? Pestilence. The pale horse represents disease, epidemics, and pandemics. The Bible uses the word loimos, which literally means pestilence or disease. Pestilence. The pale horse represents disease, epidemics, and pandemics. The Bible uses the word loimos, which literally means pestilence or disease. Chaos and suffering. The pale horse intensifies the chaos and suffering caused by the previous three horses. The four horses in the book of Revelation are distinguished by their color: white for conquest, red for war, black for pestilence and or famine, and pale for death. I believe that Beyonce's use of silver during her tour and the use of the silver and the white horse during the Olympics is telling us that both the pale and white horse are in effect. And in all three terror instances, you have bread and circus, or entertainment, at the center of it. Football playing a part in the New Orleans disaster, which of course interrupted and interfered with the playing of the Sugar Bowl game. So that's bread and circus in the most Roman of ways. Football, it is said, is actually derived from a war game dedicated to Mars. Of course, that's said in the esoteric circles. Then, of course, there was the explosion of the Tesla, and Tesla and Trump are so closely connected, but the Tesla outside of Trump Towers. Then, of course, you add to that the shooting at the nightclub, which, of course, is more entertainment, entering a tame mentality, bread and circus, and one happened in Empire City, New York, one happened in Sin City, Las Vegas, and one happened in the Crescent City, New Orleans. What do all three of these have in common symbolically? The apple representing the forbidden knowledge, that the symbolic apple that, of course, the painters from the Renaissance era and classic and historic painters who were part of the Brotherhood gave us the image of the apple to be symbolic of the forbidden knowledge, of the same knowledge that Lucifer offers to the Brotherhood members. That's the big apple. Then you have, or the Empire State, and the empire, of course, is the Third Reich of the Roman Empire rising again. And then, of course, you have the City of Sin, or Sin City, Las Vegas, home of gambling and every manner of sin that man can imagine, legalized. I think that it's not a coincidence that we can make certain relationships not just between the suspects, but between the cities where these events happened. Now, we've witnessed so many random events like this happen over the years now in random cities. It's very seldom that you'll find three major cities having major news like this happen within 24 hours. Within hours, one after the other. I think that that's something that the Brotherhood has orchestrated, and I believe that it is so that you can get the most bang for your buck out of your chaos psyops. And the crescent represents always the Queen Mother Goddess, or the fallen angel, or fallen angels that like to dress in drag, who disguise themselves as the queens or the ancestor queens of ancient civilizations. This is where you get your ancient depictions of the Queen Mother Goddess, or the Queen of the Night, Ishtar, Inanna, Isis, Diana, Venus, Sybil, all the different names that this entity goes by. You don't want to call it a her because it's not a her in reality. Remember, these are shape-shifting beings who made themselves look the way that was most appealing to the victims that they were attempting to deceive. And they went to every culture and civilization around the world and did this. And each culture and civilization has its pantheon of gods and goddesses that comes from this deception. From Africa to Europe and everything outside of it in between. The queen of the night is Isis and Bast and Hathor, is Diana of Ephesus and Venus, is Lilith and Jezebel, and is a fallen angel, aka devil, disguised as a woman. Then you have the guest on the Sean Ryan show, who claims that Matt Livelsberger sent him an email prior to the event happening outside of the Trump International Hotel, where the Tesla Cybertruck exploded. The seasoned veteran Green Beret, I believe they said he had 20 years in the service. He had active duty. He was proficient enough to be able to build a effective explosive device. As a matter of fact, that was something that he had experience in. However, he fills his truck with this makeshift childlike concoction of fireworks and gasoline and whatever else they could throw together, I believe, in order to incinerate his body or whatever body was in there. I think that that was a good way to get rid of the evidence of a body, but a terrible way to execute any sort of damage if you are a serious soldier with demolitions experience. And so something, as they say, is not adding up. The math ain't mathing. Something in the water ain't right. And again, I believe that it is because they are using these things as, largely as diversions, but as precursors, as reasons to cause for the public to cry out once again for more levels of security. But I think that what may come from this particular incident that happened with the Green Beret, I think that they're going to try to give us a double-cross, multi-layered lie where they're going to tell us that, they're probably going to say that, yes, China was behind the drones. And I think that they may do that just to throw the public off. Maybe folks were getting too wise too quickly with the social media fervor that surrounded the drones. I don't know what they thought people would do. And, I'm not sure. We don't know what exactly is going on, but we do know that something's fishy. I hope that I'm wrong and these are isolated incidents and that we'll have a nice, calm, and peaceful year of 2025. But either way, we know what we have to do, and that's to stay watchful and pray every day.